greetings for sci-fi and 80s sci-fi movie fans. Drew here from Horror Sci-Fi and Beyond, and we got Mr. Jackson Harper. We're doing a request review today, and why don't you tell my lovely audience what 80s sci-fi movie that you decided to review this evening?
All right, so Drew asked me to bring up a movie that I wanted to talk about. So I selected the Wolfgang Petersen film from 1985 called Enemy Mine.
And I've never heard of it.
Nope, he
That's
hadn't.
pretty cool. So this is the only movie that I'm reviewing that I never heard of, which is really cool. And we were originally gonna do Super because I'm still on that James Gunn kick, but you're actually in Alabama visiting some family.
Yeah,
Well, I heard
yeah.
you
I'm
moved far off.
staying with my parents, and Super is the kind of movie that's kind of hard to watch
Mhm.
when my parents are around because it's very subversive, it's very R-rated,
Yeah,
and this was a movie that I was like, okay, even if they're around, I can watch it. Now today they happen to not be around, and I watched Enemy Mine, so I could have watched Super, but I
yeah,
didn't know they weren't going to be around today until today.
mhm.
So
Yeah. So yeah,
we're
we
we're
totally could
going
have
with
done
Enemy
Super.
Mine.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like this movie is very keeping with this channel.
Mhm.
Whereas Super is, despite the James Gunn connection,
Right.
Super's not really horror, sci-fi, or beyond. And I feel
Yeah.
like this movie has a little bit of all three.
Yeah. Well, it's a superhero movie, but there's not like a fantasy or sci-fi element to it.
No, it's a very grounded movie, and it's very dark, and it's very serious. Well, it's funny, but it's also
Right.
very sad. I feel like this movie is maybe a hidden gem that
Mm.
your audience will maybe not have heard of, like you hadn't, and
Yeah.
it'll be fun to talk about.
Yeah, and I definitely like me some Dennis Quaid. I always liked him. I grew up watching The Parent Trap.
Oh,
For
sure.
yeah,
Also, he is the poor man's Harrison Ford.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think after the whole, for me personally, I think after the whole Bill Cosby thing, I think for me Dennis Quaid kind of became America's dad. Like he wouldn't want Dennis Quaid as the
God.
father.
I mean, yeah, he's played a lot of bad dads, though. Have you watched any of the Christian movies he's made?
Mhm.
He's never a good dad in those. Like, one of the ones he's in is called I Can Only Imagine, and it's about the creation of the
Mhm.
song I Can Only Imagine by Mercy Me. And he plays the dad in that. And he starts off as a really bad dad, but by the end, you really actually love him.
That's cool.
So, and it's not a terrible movie. It's not a great
Okay.
movie, but it's not really bad either.
Yeah, I actually do love that song though. I gotta admit.
Well, you should watch that movie. It's
Yeah,
actually it's pretty good. It's pretty
yeah.
good.
Did you ever see Dennis Quaid in a movie called Frequency?
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah,
I
that movie's
love
really good.
Frequency. We should talk about that movie on this channel some
Yeah,
point.
that'd be a fun one.
Talk about some good sci-fi. Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah, I really like that movie because it was kind of like Inception before Inception meets like Backdraft a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, and it kind of had like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of had like that Steven Spielbergian kind of like 60s, 70s, 80s kind of Americana kind of feel to it, what I love.
Well, I wouldn't say Inception. It more follows the rules of Looper.
I haven't seen that. There are a lot of
Oh,
sci-fi.
you haven't seen Looper?
I need
Oh
to.
my gosh, Drew.
Yeah, well,
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
From here on out, I'm only doing sci-fi movies I haven't seen, like Looper and Minority Report. Anyways, you ready to get into the review?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, and before we do that, let's go to the plot summary according to IMDb. During a long space war, the lives of two wounded enemies become dependent on their ability to forgive and trust. This movie is pretty much Avatar and like Pocahontas and like Dancing with Wolf when it's two like different cultures and they class together and they have to learn to like each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's basically that is Quaid's character. His name is like Will Davidman.
Willis Davidge.
Yeah, William Davidge, and he's like a fighter pilot.
Willis Davidge, like
Yeah,
Bruce
Will is that.
Willis.
Yeah, well, Will for sure. We'll just call him Will. Willie.
Will, sure.
Willie. Um, so he's like this fighter pilot. He's like a human fighter pilot, and basically Earth is at war with these aliens called the Drags, which is kind of a lame name in my opinion. Um, and he gets stranded on this planet with one of these Drags, and he has, and like the description of the movie is that they have to kind of come together, and another reason why it's a lot like Avatar is you kind of learn about this culture's like deity and God.
Yeah.
With I want to talk about a little bit about that in themes, but I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, there's actually a lot to talk about with this movie. I really like it. Yeah.
Yeah, and as I mentioned before in our texting, conversations,
Uh-huh.
the beginning of this movie felt very Planet of the Apes.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
because
because very
it's
atmospheric.
Willis and his co-pilot, and they crash land on this alien planet, and Willis is the only one left.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, I see that.
Yeah, for sure. And it's very atmospheric, and you got these big landscapes,
Uh-huh.
and you got kind of like the creepy music. You don't know what's around every corner. And it also kind of reminded me of Dagobah from Empire Strikes Back, because these are both kind of swampy planets.
Yeah, it's swampy, but then in certain parts it's rocky.
Yeah,
Some parts it's kind of like fiery. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, kind of volcanic in some areas. Yeah, and
Uh-huh.
I like that.
Yeah.
I love the look of this planet they're on. It was very interesting looking. I like that kind of feel in these
Mhm.
kind of sci-fi movies. It's kind of like the Skull Island kind of effect, where you're on this alien world, and there's all kind of crazy creatures.
Sure. And honestly, like Skull Island starts the same way. It's
Mm,
an American pilot and a Japanese pilot, and they crash land on this same island.
right.
And they're fighting at first, but as we learn in Skull Island through the backstory,
Mm,
and as we learn on this movie through its plot, the two have to put aside their differences because they have to survive. And the
right.
only way they can do that is together. So,
Yeah,
can
for
I
sure.
give just a little bit of like production history on this movie? Because it's a little interesting.
Mm,
Okay. So, this movie, uh, it was released in 1985. It was originally going to be directed by a guy named Richard Loncraine, who is not a big director. He's done a couple things you might have heard of, at least. He did Richard III with Ian McKellen.
yeah, I heard about that
Um,
one.
he did the movie Wimbledon with Kirsten Dunst and Paul Bettany, like the tennis romantic comedy. He's done
Yeah.
a couple other things. So he was the original director hired for this movie, and he started shooting. And they, the studio was not happy because he was doing it like on location in
Mm,
Iceland, and the dailies were bad. And they were like, okay, we have to fire this guy, but we need a new director. So they approach Wolfgang Peterson, who is the guy that directed Das Boot. And he is currently, at this point, directing or finishing up post production on The Never Ending Story, another 80s cult classic.
right.
And they're like, can you come in and finish this? And he's hesitant because he doesn't want to come in and take a project away from another director, but he sees the dailies and he's like, no, these are terrible. Iceland just looks like Iceland, and the makeup on Lou Gossett Jr. looks like a terrible 50s B movie
Mm,
creature. And so he's like, okay, I'll come in and work on this for you. You just got to let me finish Never Ending Story. So they put the production on hold so he could finish Neverending Story. And he comes in, and this is a movie that started at a $17 million budget. And of course, this is 1985 money, so it's more like a $40 to $50 million budget today. Still not a huge budget movie, but instead of using Iceland locations as the planet, they start building these big sets, and they redo the makeup on Lou Gossett Jr., and they come in and basically start from scratch. And they shoot the movie, and then they get done, and the studio doesn't know how to market the movie.
Right.
They're like, what do we do with this? So they spend a whole bunch more money. It wound up being the full budget with reshoots, marketing, and everything. In today's dollars, about $113 million.
Mm.
And then they released the movie at Thanksgiving, and it flops.
Right.
It doesn't get good reviews, and then over the past 4 decades, it's finally starting to get some respect in the sort of cult sci-fi community. So I thought that was worth mentioning at the top of the show,
Oh yeah.
just
for
so
sure.
we have some context.
Yeah, and you know what this planet kind of reminded me of a little bit, and that was
Okay.
just some really interesting stuff right there with the backstory. It kind of reminded me, because I went to Yellowstone last year,
Okay.
National Park. There's like these geysers and some of the volcanic stuff or areas.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of that. So that was kind of cool. It brought some realism to it. Something I recognized.
Yeah. And I will say, like, the first little sequence of this movie, at least watching it in HD, I feel like this movie needs a remaster because some of the sequences at the top of the film look a little fakey. It gets better as it goes along. And so maybe that was the stuff that the first guy shot. I don't know. It didn't look great on my HD TV. Like I said, maybe it just needs a remaster.
Yeah, the other thing I don't like about all those high end like 4K HD TVs is like you watch a movie, like Ghostbusters, for instance, and like the dated effects really look bad.
Yeah,
like those quick shots of like that demon dog running around New York City looks pretty bad.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what the Flash is gonna look like on there. Because everybody's seen the effect on that.
I still haven't seen it. I won't for a while. So
yeah, it's really not worth it because they don't even like even imply what's gonna happen. And with James Gunn at the helm, they don't want to attempt anything like that. But that's a different story for a different day. We already talked about the Flash on this channel, on this show. One of my favorite parts of this movie is when that weird creature that kind of that had like a turtle shell and he had like spider legs or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got by that pit monster that had that tongue that looked like it had a centipede at the end.
Yep.
It was really weird. And then so he eats the monster and it shoots up the or it spits out the cell and it bursts.
The shell. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So one more little personal thing before we move on, and then I'll let you talk for a while. But I got to add this. So the reason that I know about this movie is because when I was a kid, I was probably 7, 8, 9.
Mm.
I was with my dad and my uncle, and they were just kind of flipping through the channels, trying to find something to watch. And they happen across the scene where Dennis Quaid gets trapped by that pit monster. And the tentacle or the tongue or whatever comes out of the pit and wraps around his leg and is starting to pull him down. And Lou Gossett Jr.'s character has to come and save him. And then they turn the channel. We saw that scene, and then they turn the channel.
Yeah,
and so
the blood was too much for you, Jackson.
Okay, but as a kid, that scene got burned into my brain.
Oh, really?
So fast forward like 15 years later, and I'm in my early to mid 20s, and the internet is around, and I'm on the IMDb movie chat forums, which
Mhm.
don't exist anymore. That's how old I am. And I go on and make a post, and I type, "What is this movie?" And I describe the scene because I didn't know what movie it was, but I had been thinking about it for like 15 years.
Right.
And I described the scene, and finally somebody's like, "It sounds like Enemy Mine." I'd never heard of this movie either. So I
Right.
went, and this is back when Netflix still had discs. So I
Mhm.
put it in my queue, put it at the top because I wanted to see this movie where this scene had come from because I could not shake it. And then it turns out the movie's really good.
Yeah,
So
it's
I feel
pretty
like
solid.
I feel like I won there. So,
Yeah. Well, I
but
forgot.
yeah, that's how I saw this movie. Is I saw that scene first, and then 15 years later, finally somebody told me what movie it was from.
That's pretty funny. Um, that's actually really funny. Um, so this is Lewis. Um, what's his last name? Gossett.
Gossett.
Yeah, Junior. He's the
Yeah.
alien dude, and I think
Yes.
he's amazing in this movie. Like,
It's a great performance.
oh yeah, for sure. Like
Absolutely magical.
almost like Oscar worthy because like he gets like his whole body into it, and like he's like
Yeah.
slowly learning how to speak English, and like certain
Hmm.
words that he would say was kind of weird, and I
Yeah.
like the bickering between him and Dennis Quaid's
Yeah,
character.
it's fun.
There's just one part in the movie when they're trying to build shelter, and
Hmm.
I can't remember what he said no steady or something like that, or but he was basically
Oh,
making fun
yeah. Yeah, he
of
says it's not steady.
yeah.
And he's like, it is steady.
Yeah.
Well, first he says, shit.
Yeah, and you of course get the classic, Dennis Quaid goes over to it, and he
Yeah.
kicks it, and then he walks back and it falls over. Oh, and then what was
Yeah.
really cool was right after the part where he gets pulled under the pit, he sees like all the turtle cells laying around,
Yeah.
and he picks one of them up, and he's like, and he kind of like smacks it around. He's like, "Wait, that's what's gonna hold up this altar. It's these turtle
Yeah.
cells." Or
Yeah.
turtle cell. I said turtle. Weird. I thought that was pretty interesting. I also thought it was interesting how the whole birth thing process of these aliens.
Yeah.
Well, because basically, this alien character's name is Dennis Quaid calls him Jerry. He has a different name than
His
that.
name is Jariba.
Yeah, Jariba.
Jariba Shigan.
Yeah, so basically, Jariba basically explains to Dennis Quaid like you humans, like you get to like choose when your females get pregnant. Like for us, like it just happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because the Dracs are not male or female.
Oh, really? I didn't catch that part of it.
Yeah, that's part of their whole species is that none of them are male or female. They're I guess non-binary is
Yeah,
the
I was
term.
gonna say
Happy
that.
Pride. Happy Pride.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Oh,
yeah,
it works for
it actually works for Pride Month. Yeah. So
yeah. Happy
yeah,
Pride Month, everybody.
they're non-binary and they reproduce asexually. So they only each Drac only has one parent.
Mm.
Yeah, they just get pregnant on their own. They give birth on their own, and that's it. That's just the norm for their species.
Yeah, and I think that was one thing that surprised me about this movie was when I kind of briefly skimmed through the different descriptions of this movie. I'm like, okay, this is gonna be like like an action movie. There's gonna be a lot of action in it. I was pleasantly surprised. It was more of a straight up drama.
No, it's very much
Yeah,
about the characters. That's what makes it good sci-fi
yeah,
because it's not like a space adventure. It's a character study
yeah,
about these two beings of different species who learn to live together and work together and love each other.
Yeah, and that's like one of my problems with Avatar was I felt like it was more style over substance. Like a lot of
It's an action movie because it's James Cameron. Yeah,
yeah, well, like it had like to me, Avatar had like a it had a good message in there about the environment or whatever. It was just so
sure.
vanilla, and that's sad because like I think James Cameron is capable of making like these really epic action movies like Aliens
Mhm.
and Terminator,
Sure.
2, and but actually make it smart. And I didn't get that with Avatar, but I got it kind of here. And I love the whole, Willis kind of bonding with um um I'm just gonna call him Jerry, because that's what Dennis calls him in the movie.
Yeah, that's easier. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
I
it's
like how he
Jariba.
yeah. I like how he bonds with Jerry's kid. I thought that was real
Oh
heartwarming.
yeah, Zamis. Yeah.
Yeah, Zomis. You know what was funny? Because you first learn about that kid's name when he's making clothes for them, and I thought he was trying to say pajamas. I
Yeah.
swear to God, it sounded like that.
Yeah, it's sort of like he's saying jammies,
Yeah,
but it's Zamis.
that
Yeah.
Tommy's.
And I think that's part of the joke is that
Right.
he's holding up the little like onesie and he says Zamis and
Mm,
you're supposed to think jammies, but no, that's what he's going to name. Well, we keep saying he. It's a they. Well,
okay.
in the movie they're called an it. I don't
Mm,
really like that, but
yeah,
that's the language of the movie.
yeah,
So,
yeah. It was a different time, Jackson. It was 1985.
yeah, I know, I know.
um, what else can I say about this movie? Oh, I love the football scene. I thought the football scene was great.
That's fun. That's fun.
That definitely brought back a lot of memories about playing football with my dad, or playing
Mhm.
like catch with the baseball. Yeah. Oh, and so that Jerry does die of childbirth in the middle of the movie. So that's why Dennis Quaid has to take care of zombies.
Yeah, that's a whole plot point in the movie. I mean, we're skipping over like a whole bunch of stuff
Mhm.
in the movie. Like basically these two characters, they start off they're trying to kill each other. Well, Dennis Quaid is trying to kill Jerry and Jerry gets the upper hand and takes Dennis Quaid aka Davidge prisoner. And then all this stuff starts happening. They have to work together to survive. And through this whole process, they learn to respect each other. Then they learn to be friends.
Right.
And they sort of become like a little family.
Mhm.
And it turns out that they're not really the only ones on this planet. There's this group called the Scavengers
Mhm.
that they come to planets and they mine it for ores, and they also take Drax, not the character from Marvel,
Right.
but the alien species that Jerry is a member of. They take them as slave labor.
Anyway, do you want to get into theme of the movie?
Sure.
All right. So, what is your theme, Mr. Jackson?
Well, it's kind of summed up in one scene. I mean, it occurs over the course of the movie, but there's one scene that really speaks to me. And okay, so Davidge and Jerry, they've been here for a while, and they've started to bond, but there's still a little bit of a language barrier between them because Jerry has started to learn English, but Davidge cannot speak Drac. And Jerry carries this little book around with him that he's always reading from, and it's like a Drac Bible basically, and it's called the Talman. And so Davidge asks him, "Will you teach me the Talman?" Well, Jerry's like, "It's not for people like you." What? Not for humans? No, it's for anybody, but not you, because they've insulted each other at this point, and there's some tension. They kind of make up, and uh, so finally, Jerry decides to teach Davidge the Talman, and so he's teaching him his language, but also teaching him like the beliefs of his people. So they're out there and they're talking and they read a passage and it's in Drac, but Jerry says translate. And I can't remember exactly the words he uses, but it's like, if someone does evil to you, do not return evil to them,
Right.
but rather return love to them, and the two of you will be united. And Davidge says, I've heard these words before. It's in the human Talman. And Jerry says, of course you have. Truth is truth. And that that scene when I first saw this movie floored me, because there is something that connects all of us, and it's the truth. Now, I'm not saying that like religion connects us or race or culture or anything, but I think that there's something underneath it all. There's something that's true and good and kind and loving underneath everything that connects all of us, because we're all people. We all have meals with our families. We all have struggles. We go to work. We get fired. We have trouble in traffic. We have trouble with our mothers.
We all play football with little alien boys.
Sure. There is something underneath all of our differences that's all the same. And whether or not that's expressed through religious teachings or culture, that's irrelevant. There's something bigger than that at work in our lives.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what that is. I know that some people would define it this way and some people would define it the other way. I would define it a certain way that, that's not the purpose of this show.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying there is something that unites us all. And once we can learn how to zero in on that, we can start to understand each other and start to live peacefully and in harmony with each other. And that's, to me, the most important thing in this life, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I just don't get why some people get just so hung up on the differences.
I know.
It's like somebody sees somebody else, like a Christian person will see somebody of the Muslim faith and automatically sees them as the enemy. And I don't get that, because you're only seeing that they have a different religious belief than you. You're not seeing the person in that Muslim person or that Jewish person or that Hindu person or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's real sad to see that. And I think that's honestly a lot of the reason why there's a lot of crap going on in the world and has been going on for like centuries upon centuries. It's because we're just so focused on the differences and not what binds us all together. Because there's a lot of universal truths with all these with all the different religions. It is the deity's different.
And that's what the movie says. Truth is truth.
Yeah.
It's just a pity that we disagree on the details of truth, I guess.
Yeah. I think ultimately, I think it's love. I think love kind of conquers all. I think that's kind of what the movie is kind of getting at. Because I think in that passage that he was reading in the Talman, he says something about like love. There's something about love in there. I can't remember.
Yeah. Well, it says respond with love. When somebody does evil to you, respond with love. And then you will be united. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think eventually Dennis Quaid's character kind of comes to that realization, because he sees this character that he's known for, I think it's like he's been on this planet with this alien guy for like 3 years, I think they said. So
by the end, he's been on the planet for 3 years.
Yeah, and and he comes to really like to really like him. Like
Mm-hmm.
because that's all they got, and it's just crazy to me that this one event of them both crashing on this planet leads into that,
Mm-hmm.
and then this alien creature has a child, and he dies during childbirth, and so like he has to become Dennis Quaid has to become a father figure,
Mm-hmm.
because of that bond. He already built that bond and that love and
Mm-hmm.
trust between these two characters. He's like, you know what? I'm gonna take care of your kid, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna love him as my own child. It's some pretty powerful stuff for like an '80s sci-fi movie.
Yeah, well, it looks now like it's a B movie. When you compare it to like Star Wars or Blade Runner or some of the other sci-fi
Mhm.
movies of the era, it's kind of a B movie.
Right.
It's but it wears its heart on its sleeve proudly, and I love that about it
Oh,
because
absolutely.
it's got some action in the sort of third act of the movie, and
Mhm.
the third act is the part that works the least, but it works emotionally because uh, Davidge is trying to rescue zombies from this group of scavengers who have taken zombies, and tried to make him a slave or
Right.
whatever.
Well, and I think that's another reason why it kind of reminded me. I know Avatar came out, much later, but like
Yeah.
eventually both Jake Scully and William Davids or Willis Davids like understands these aliens or this other culture enough to where like
Hmm.
when he's seen like his own race and his own species like mistreat him and kind of demonize him like he once did, like he takes it upon himself to become the protector.
Yeah, it's a good message for people who count themselves as allies.
Mhm. Do you want to do favorite part, least favorite part?
Okay.
So let's go first. What is your? Do you want to do least favorite or favorite?
Well, I think our least favorite is probably the same thing.
Um, kind of. Well, I didn't put what you're probably thinking down, but I'll let you say your.
Oh, well, we talked about the narration in this movie.
Yeah, it's kind of awkward.
It's really stupid. It feels like a studio note that was tacked
Mhm.
on after the movie was already done. Doesn't feel like part of the script. Yeah, it's like the narration in the original cut of Blade Runner. Doesn't add anything. Yeah,
Yeah, I kind of agree with you that narration. It was awkward, and I even kind of compared it to a movie that did it much better, The Salt Lake Redemption, because you didn't.
sure.
Yeah, well, you don't get that narration for like at least like 10 minutes until you're introduced to Red Morgan Freeman's character, and
Well,
so like,
yeah, and
oh, sorry.
in that the narration is part of the story.
Absolutely.
Like it's part of the script. It was there from the beginning. It's conceived. It's well written. It's well delivered. Whereas in something like this or the original cut of Blade Runner,
Mm,
it seems like an afterthought that they added in because they're like, oh, people aren't going to
right.
understand this. We better put in some narration. And it's awkward. It's
Yeah.
stupid.
Well, because like in Salt Lake, there wasn't a part in that beginning of that movie where Red explained why Andy Dufresne came to the prison. Like
Right.
it showed him like in his car, drunk, kind of contemplating wanting to kill his wife, and then him in court, and then
Yeah.
it gets to the narration part. Like this, it kind of
Yeah.
explains the world. Like no, like show me
Yeah.
what is going on. If it's a complete afterthought, if you didn't construct this movie with narration in mind,
Hmm.
which is very much felt like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just really weird to
All
me.
right. So what's your favorite part?
Oh, least favorite part.
Oh, what's your least favorite part then?
Um, though I did really enjoy that thematic thing we were talking about, with like people with different, beliefs and different cultures and whatnot.
Hmm.
And they kind of tied it in, to like the Bible and then, this alien race has a different version or a different, holy book or whatever.
Hmm.
I wanted a little more explanation in this alien species deity.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to know how it worked a little bit more.
I guess, but I don't feel like it even talks about the deity. I feel like when they talk about what do they call him?
Susa or something like that.
Shizmar.
Yes, yes, it's more because Dennis Quaid makes fun of that.
Yeah. I feel like that's just their great teacher.
Right.
And I don't feel like they mention a deity at all or a religion. It's just Shizmar is their teacher and he wrote this book. So I don't know what their religion is. I don't
Yeah,
feel
I guess
like that's
that's true.
important.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of wanted a little bit more explanation because going back to the Avatar thing, you kind of know what like Awa is all about. It's kind of
Hmm.
the thing that kind of binds all of Pandora, and
Yeah.
the Na'vi are kind of connected to it. So I kind of wanted a little more explanation there. But I mean, if I had to find something that I didn't like about that movie, that might be it. But
Okay.
it's so minor. What would be your favorite part of this movie?
Oh, well, it's truth is truth.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's that scene. Like that scene ties the whole movie together for me.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's not a bad one. I gotta go to the football scene. Because, like I said, that just brought a lot of good memories of me and my dad playing
Yeah, it's
football.
very sweet.
Yeah,
It's
throwing the
very
little
sweet.
pig skin around,
Hmm.
and it almost felt like a different movie from
Yeah.
yeah, because like the first part was kind of like this survival kind of comedy movie, and then like that whole football scene, and then him raising his kid like felt like a family
Hmm.
movie,
Yeah, it
family
really
picture.
does. Yeah.
Um, yeah, it kind of did. It felt like it, and it's kind of interesting that they what you said how the releases in like Thanksgiving because it's kind of a family movie in a way.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's like a
that's how the
sci-fi
movie
version of it.
ends. It ends with him taking Zamis to Dracon, which is
Hmm.
the home planet, and reciting the whole genealogy of Jariba to the
Right.
council, so that Zamis will be accepted into their
Mhm.
culture. Like it's all about family.
Yeah, and I just want to mention just real quick before we wrap this episode up. I actually really like the character design
It's
of
really good.
yeah
Yeah.
yeah because like it's kind of like the xenomorph kind of mixed with the Gill Man from the creatures.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
It's more xenomorph in like the way they move because they kind of have like how they distort their bodies a little bit and they got that tail, so a little bit of the
Hmm.
zombie. Maybe I mean people kind of say that like James Cameron riffed off a lot of movies when he did Avatar, like Pocahontas and Nature of Wolf. Maybe they're not giving this movie enough credit. It's pretty similar. It's pretty similar
I
in a lot of
can
ways.
see where you're coming from. Yeah.
Yeah, with the design of the creatures. But you want to rate this movie and we'll wrap this up?
Sure.
All right. So, what is your rating for Enemy Mind?
I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5.
Okay, me too. 4 out of 5.
All right.
Yep. I
That
originally
was
had it
easy.
down. I originally had it down for 3.5, but like after hearing you talk about it, I'm like, it goes up half a the score.
It's a good movie, y'all. Everybody should go out and get it from wherever you're renting movies online.
Yeah, I mean it's like it's no Star Wars or like Terminator. It's not like all out action, but like it's a sweet movie.
Yeah.
If you like stuff like E.T. and Gremlins, like check this movie out.
Oh, definitely if you like ET, because I feel like it moves at that kind of pace.
Yeah.
It's kind of slow, but in a way that's always engaging. you're always interested to see what these characters do next.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I love these kind of movies where it's like a human
Hmm.
character befriending like a creature of some sort. I love that stuff.
Hmm.
So anyways, guys, this has been the latest episode of Horror Sci-Fi and Beyond. Thank you for
Woo.
watching. I don't know what's gonna be next after this. Um, but hopefully something pretty exciting. And if you like this episode and you want to see more spooky and weird content, make sure you slap that subscribe button and follow me on Facebook and Twitter at Horror Sci-Fi and Beyond. And also, don't forget to leave this episode a killer comment and a King Kong size thumbs up. This has been Drew from Horror Sci-Fi and Beyond. Over and out. Bye.